In this lecture, we guys are going to talk about Python iterators. See, an iterator is an object that contains a countable number of values. Okay, an iterator is an object that can be iterated upon, meaning that you can traverse through all the values. Technically, in Python, an iterator is an object which implements the iterator protocol, which consists of the methods underscore underscore iter underscore underscore and next. Okay, so these are the two methods which come under this iterator thing. Now, lists, tuples, dictionaries, and sets are all iterable objects. They are iterable containers which you can get an iterator from. All these objects have a iter method which is used to get an iterator. Let's understand it with the help of an example. Let's say we have got a tuple with this name my tuple, and inside this we have got three different items. The first one is apple, second one is mango, let's say, and third one is cherry. Fine. So this is the tuple that we have defined over here. Now we can create an object for this tuple, and iter is the function with which we can make it iterable. So my tuple, and then we can hit this, sorry, what is this, we can hit this next button. Okay, why is this throwing an error? Just a second, let's copy this command again and put it over here. So iter is a method, and my tuple, okay, this, the name of this tuple is incorrect, so that is the reason we came across this error. Now we are done with creating an object over here. Now what is going to happen if I will pass a command like this, print next, and then inside this let's define the name of the variable we have made use of here. This is what you're going to get. Now again, if you will pass this command over here, what are you going to get? So you're going to get the second item. Likewise, if you pass this command again, you are going to get the third item. Okay, so this way it returns an iterator from a tuple and print each value. Even strings are iterable objects and can return an iterator. For example, if suppose you have got a string like this, so we need to enclose it in double inverted commas first. Okay, so we have assigned a string value to a particular variable that is my str. Okay, now let's define an object for this. So we are going to use the same method iter, and inside this we are going to pass this as a parameter. Now what will happen if you will run this command? If you run this command over here, what is going to happen? So you will get B. Again, if you run this command, you will get A. So this is how you are going to get the output. Now how can you loop through an iterator? So we can also use a for loop to iterate through an iterable object. How? For that we need to create a tuple first. Let's make use of this statement or command, you can say, which we have defined first, and let's change it to tuple. Okay, so this is the tuple that we have created. Now in order to loop through this iterator, loop through this tuple, we can make use of for loop like this, right? And you need to place a colon after this, and then okay, there is a mistake which I have made over here, maybe because X is written, so that's the reason. earlier we came across an error, a syntax error. Now let's print the value of x. So that's what you are going to get as an output. Okay, now if you want to iterate through the characters of a string, so again you can make use of a for loop in place of that iter method if you want to do that. Let's copy this thing and put it over here, and in place of this, because I want to pass a string value for a particular variable. Okay, so now apple is the value which has got stored in this variable mytuple. Now let's see whether we'll be able to iterate through the values, through the characters of this string value or not. So for doing that, we can write down like this. Again this syntax error is getting reflected. Why? Because we haven't placed this colon over here. I think now we'll be able to pass this command print text, and this is what we'll get as an output. So with the help of for loop, you can iterate through the characters of a string. Fine. Now how to create an iterator? See, to create an object or class as an iterator, you have to implement the methods iter and next. These are the two methods you have to keep in mind if you want to create an object or class as an iterator. Fine. As you have learned in Python classes and objects chapter, all classes have a function called init, right? Which allows you to do some initializing when the object is being created. The iter method acts similar. You can do operations like initializing, etc., but must always return an iterator object itself. The next method also allows you to do operations and must return the next item in the sequence. Okay, so that's how you can make use of iter and next method. Now let's understand this concept of creating an iterator with the help of an example. For a particular, if you want to create iterator for a particular class and objects, how can you do that? So for doing that, let's create a class first. Let's say my numbers is the class. Okay, and let's define a function. Let's define an iter function inside this. The way we used to define the init function, in the same way we can define the iter function also. And self is the parameter which we are going to pass for this iter method. Now here we are going to write down self.a is equals to 1, let's say, and we are going to return the value of this self. Fine. After this we are going to, let's define one more function. Next is the second function that you are required to define. Okay, and self is a parameter which you have to pass for this function too. Now here we are going to make use of a variable x, and x is equals to self.a. So whatever the value of self.a we have assigned over here inside this iter function, it is going to get pulled up in this next function also through this command, by this command. Okay, now let's say self.a is equals to self.a plus 1. So here we are incrementing the value of self.a. Okay, every time this function will be called, the value of self.a is going to get incremented by 1. Let's return the value of x now, because finally the value of self.a is getting saved in this variable x. Okay, now it should be like this, no? I think I am making a mistake over here. It should be like this. Earlier it was my numbers that I wrote, so that's the reason I came across a syntax error. Let's now hit the enter button. So I'm done with creating an object for this my number class, and now I am going to create an iterator object. For this my class object we have created for this class over here. So that's how we can do it. And let's now pass the same command which we passed earlier, and inside this we need to write down. Okay, now let's hit the enter button and see what's going to happen. So this is what we are going to get as an output. Initially the value of self.a is 1. Now it will get incremented by 1, and the value of self.a will now be equal to 2, and similarly again it will become equal to 3, then 4, then 5, and so on. So every time I'll call this function next, the value of self.a is going to get incremented by 1, and the same value will be assigned to this variable x also. Now because this function is returning towards the value of x, so that is the reason the value of x is getting printed over here again and again and again, or you can say every time you'll call this function, this this next function, passing this as a parameter. Now there is one more thing. How can we stop an iteration? See, the example above would continue forever if you had enough next statements, or if it was used in a for loop. To prevent the iteration to go on forever, we can make use of the stop iteration statement. So let's understand the concept of stop iteration. How can we stop the iteration? With an example. So let's define a class over here with name my numbers. And inside this we are going to define a function. This iter method we are going to define like this, and then self.a is equals to 1, and it is going to return us the value of self. After this, let's define one more method, next method, and inside this let's pass this self as a parameter. After this we can define an if loop. If self.a is smaller than or equals to 20, let's say this is a condition. Okay, I think I haven't placed a colon after this condition part, so that is the reason I got this syntax error over here. Now if the condition is true, then I would like the value of self.a should get assigned to this x variable. Okay, and after this the value of self.a should get incremented by 1 every time this function is being called. Fine, and finally this function is going to return the value of x to us. Now comes the else part for this if loop. So it is going to raise this stop iteration. It means that if the condition is false, the compiler is not going to execute these 3 lines. Instead, it will come on this else part and execute this thing, iteration. So this is going to stop the iteration for us. Okay, now let's hit the enter button and create an object for this class that we have defined over here, that is my numbers. So that's how we can create an object for this my numbers class. My iter is equals to iter then my class. After this we can make use of a for loop in my iter, then we need to place a colon, and after that we can print the value of x using this print command. So this is what you will get as an output. Now as you can see, all the numbers starting from 1 till 20 are printed by the compiler, have got printed by the compiler in the output part, but after this we do not have any numbers. Why? It is just because of this condition, because this condition will be false for self.a is equals to 21. If the value of self.a is equals to 21, at that time this condition will be false. So instead of these 3 lines of codes, the compiler is going to execute the else part, that is raise stop iteration. Fine. So this is how you can stop the iteration. Fine. Hope you guys enjoyed this lecture. Please do like and subscribe to my channel, and also share the link of this video with your colleagues so that they can also come and learn free coding on my channel. Thank you very much. God bless you and namaste.